It wouldn't be a please hold without Michael R. of Easton, Pennsylvania, asks, "Hi, Matt. Hope your injured finger feels better. And hi, Dave, with all the success of the Spawn Kickstarter, any plans for Cerebus in Hell CereSpawn issue? Might as well." That's not really the way that Cerebus in Hell works, although it's an interesting idea.
I had an idea. I thought about something. I've had an idea for probably a year now. I just got to find a cover to parody. But the
that's one of the problems. Is this is what I was going to start to explain. You can pick up from there. It usually starts with the cover. Either you or Benjamin Hobbs or David Birdsong or Gary Boyarsky or Lee Thacker comes up with a parody cover, and then I take that and just start riffing on it. So go ahead, you pick up from there.
So the idea I've had for a while is using Spore. Take the image from the back cover of whatever issue that was. Yea, verily, even on the back cover, men will call him Spore, and put
277, 76, somewhere around there.
But my initial idea was take that and okay, we'll do a Spawn parody cover. Grab one, find an iconic Spawn cover that we can parody with Spore that'll work. And after the Spawn 10 Kickstarter started, I'm like, we really ought to do the Cape Ends 500 yards Cerebus as Spawn as Cerebus, and then Batvark as Spore, and both of them trying to cash in on the Spawn 10 thing. And so the whole issue is just the two of them, the static image, but it's them, one camp is doing their Spawn parody, the other camp's doing their Spawn parody, and whoever can get it done first is going to make the $80,000. In their minds.
Okay, yeah. Of course, that brings up the other problem with Cerebus in Hell, which is how far ahead I am on Cerebus in Hell. I just finished my part of the May 2022 issue, and I'm trying to talk myself down off of the ledge and go, a year and a half ahead, Dave. That's pretty good. Considering that nobody else, I think, knows what they're doing in the comic book field much past March or April of 2021. We're very much ahead of the curve on it, and that ties in with something else in a later question. So I won't get to that quite yet, but that's the way it would happen. If you figure out a Spawn cover that it would work with, and you can figure out how to get either the Cape Ends 500 yards or Spore, that would certainly be interesting, crushed down to Cerebus and Hell panel size. And,
well, I think at that point it would be a splash of the full Spore, and the rest of it is just him cut off at the knees, because that's what it would. To me would be hilarious. Is that it's I'm Spore, and no everybody's at knee level.
Right. All you can see is sort of the claw hands.
One of the gags I thought of was one of them is trying to be a quote unquote McFarlane faithful. So our version of Hell has to match McFarlane's Hell. So the Winged Devils are all very upset because that whichever Cerebus or Batvark, whichever one team they're on, is insisting that they cut off their noses because all the demons in Todd McFarlane's Hell have no noses.
Okay. See, I didn't even know that. That's good.
Well, it's one of those gags that I'm like, I can see at least getting 2 or 3 strips out of that, and then I'm going, Matt, you still have to write the Avengers parody you suggested.
Right. And the next Varkor. You're getting into George Lucas territory of how long it takes you to get these out there. It's
well, that's the moment of service gag for, I believe, Herman is, or no, I'm sorry, it's Spider Horror, which is maybe Mr. Dow should get finished with the 25th Vark Wars, and I'm going, that's a little too on the nose, guys. That's not funny. I mean, I laughed, but at the same time, I'm like, oh yeah, really? You know, I guess I got to start taking the notebook with me to work and trying to come up with funny things while I'm working.
Well, we try not to point that out. That I'm a real overachiever because I know as soon as you lose lead time, you never get it back again, and I'm really looking forward to David Birdsong's giant-sized public defenders, and I've actually started putting Fred Murdoch into corners of Cerebus and Hell panels. It's not time for him yet. Sometime in 2022, and only if Dave Sims stops producing issues, so you guys can start getting some in them. I think Benjamin Hobbs has given up on actually writing and drawing Cerebus and Hell. He's just doing Virgin covers and auctioning them off, which is probably the far more sensible thing to do than hoping that you're going to come up with a Cerebus and Hell comic book that sells more than 1,800 copies, or at least where the sales go up, so you get a royalty on it. Because if the sales goes down, nobody gets paid.
Well, I got the collections of Marvel Zombies where it's Marvel Zombies. They're the superheroes as zombies, and it was kind of a fun series. But I pulled them out because what they did was Arthur Sundam did parody covers where it was classic Marvel covers as zombies. And in the back of the collections, they have small reprints of the original covers. And so I opened it up and I'm like, that one, we did that one, we did that one. Oh, we didn't do this one, we didn't do this one. And I'm looking at it like one of them is, it's a Daredevil cover from the Frank Miller era with Elektra. Not the one where Elektra dies, but a different one. But it's got a giant headshot of Daredevil. And I'm looking at it going, can we do a service that big and have it look good?
I think David Birdsong is up to doing anything like that at this point. It's a good idea. It's almost like we're edging towards Marvel cover Family Feud. What's the most common cover when you have this as the adjective for it? And that's off in the future somewhere, but yeah, we're definitely milking the whole Marvel iconic cover thing for all it's worth.
Well, I also have the Batman 50 Years of the Dark Knight that reprints a bunch of covers, and every now and then I flip that open and I'm like, all right, that's how I got Poet in the Family. Was I flipped it open and it has that cover in it, and I'm like, okay, that's definitely one that we have to parody because it is iconic, and I can see a way of doing it that'll actually be funny.
Right.
And then you guys took it in a whole different direction that's even funnier.
Well, it was those are the hoops that we jumped through, which is you've got to pass both of those tests, and there's got to be times when you guys are going, come on, we've done every iconic comic book cover, until something like that happens where you go, oh no, that one's perfect, and it was. It's certainly something I would never have come up on my own. So it's really the Dave Sims start me up thing. All you have to do is give me the parody cover, and I'll start riffing on it. I'm not really good at coming up with covers on my own. But once I've got one,
the whole
the poet and the family in particular cycled through my pile for a while before I went. I think I'm starting to get a picture of what I'm gonna do with this, and then once I started on it, and particularly when I came up with the thing of each one being a full pager and being far more like a Chekhov play, but Cerebus in Hell with the Bad Bark Cousins. All we can do is make ourselves laugh. If we make ourselves laugh, presumably there's an audience out there. It might only be 5 other guys like us, and 1,800 other people going, Dave Sim is ruining his legacy in comics by doing this stuff. How can he possibly do these things? Well, I think they're funny. You think they're funny. Sean thinks they're funny. David Birdsong thinks they're funny. Benjamin Hobbs thinks they're funny. That's what we go with. If it makes you laugh, then you can't say, "Oh, well, I can't do that." Well, no. If it's funny, it's funny. You can't censor yourself on comedy. Like you say, the thing of here's critiquing Matt on getting caught up on Dark Wars, and you laugh. And if you laugh, well, it's funny. Why is it funny? Because it's true. Michael says, "Oh, you said to Michael, he's referring to the middle finger of my left hand. I broke the tip of it last Friday." And I was going to turn that into a question and ask you, why did you do that?
I was at work for Thanksgiving. They came and said, "You want to work Thanksgiving, Black Friday, that Saturday, and that Sunday?" And I said yes, because Thanksgiving and Black Friday, I get 8 hours of holiday pay. And then if I work, I get 8 hours of time and a half. So it's technically double time and a half if I work 8 hours. And
right.
We worked on Thursday. We shut the plant down, turned the lights off, turned the air compressors off, locked everything up, went home. Showed up Friday morning, and there was a third shift guy that was coming in for first shift hours. So he had unlocked the plant and turned everything on. I went to the pressure tester I was supposed to run. And, well, first off, I helped him fire up his pressure tester because he was having problems. So then I'm in a rush because I'm trying to make my boss happy, because I don't want to get talked to for, "Hey, we're paying you double time and a half and you're not producing parts." So I grabbed the first part, I put it in the pressure tester, and the part gets held by 3 clamps that they're pneumatic, and there's a safety screen that when the light curtain's broken, they can't move. But apparently there was residual air in the solenoid, because when the part hit the clamp, it triggered and pinched my finger between the fixture for the machine and the part. And as soon as I felt pressure, I yanked my hand away and went, "Oh God, this is really, really, really gonna hurt." But first things first, go get my hand under cold water, because I don't have an ice pack handy, and it's closer to get to the sink than it is to get to the refrigerator where the ice packs are. But I'll put it under really cold water. That'll help. And then I went back to work. And then we were having problems with the machine, so we ended up calling in a supervisor, or calling a supervisor, and he said, try this, and when I was talking to him, I'm like, "Oh, by the way, I hurt my finger. I'll send you pictures I'll take pictures with my phone and send them to you so we can get it documented." And he's like, "Okay, fine." In the meantime, a different supervisor, a guy, was sending him text messages saying that I was having problems with the machine, and, "Oh yeah, by the way, I hurt my finger." And he's like, "Well, do I need to come in?" And I had the guy respond, "Matt says you can come in if you want." And then I sent a picture of my finger, and his response was, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. And
so it was an accident.
Yeah, it was an accident. It was 100%. They're investigating how it happened, because by all accounts, it was an impossible situation. It should not have been possible for this clamp to fire the way it did. And
right.
And so I finished working my 8-hour shift, and we did an accident report. We had to call a 24-hour nurse hotline, and they said, "We recommend that you go and get checked out. And I'm like, I will after work. So after work, I went to the walk-in clinic, walked up, and they said, what are you here for? And I held out my hand and went, I broke my finger, or I hurt my finger at work, and I need to get it checked out. And they sent me to the orthopedics side of the walk-in clinic, where I had to go through a bunch of rigmarole and filling out, answering questions I don't know the answers to. And then they took me back and they looked at it and went, yeah, we're going to take an x-ray. And I'm like, all right, fine. And went and got my, probably the first x-ray I can remember ever getting in my life. And came back into the examination room, and the doctor came in and pulled the x-rays up on the computer and went, oh, yep, you broke it. And I'm like, what? And he zoomed in on the picture, and you can see it's the picture I sent you where, the tip of my finger is cracked off inside my finger. And I'm like, 41 years without breaking a bone, and I finally broke a bone that I know of. I may have screwed up my ankle in the past and might have broke something there, but I have never officially been documented with a broken bone. I used to pride myself on, I've made it this far without breaking anything. And now the tip of my finger's broke. And they're like, well, we can't do anything because it's the tip. There's, we put it in a splint, we can wrap it up real good so that because they're like, does it hurt? I'm like, it only hurts when I touch something because, it's tender. And they're like, well, we can wrap it up. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, it's broke, but it's not going to get worse if I don't do anything, other than the nail might fall off. And they're like, yeah, so, if you want, we can wrap it up. Otherwise, no. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And then he asked me, do you need any restrictions when you go back to work? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I can go and work. I know for definite I can work. And he's like, really? I'm like, I just worked 8 hours after doing this.
Right.
And right. Basically, they're going, well, how did you work? Because you can't grab the part. I'm like, well, I can't put my finger under the part because I'm worried that the clamp's going to do it again. So I'm pinching the top of this 50-pound part between 3 fingers on each hand and then setting it in and hoping that, it doesn't slip out of my fingers. And everybody at work's going, that's real nasty. And I'm like, it doesn't hurt. And they're like, oh, it looks horrible. And I'm like, it doesn't hurt. And they're like, what do you mean? And I started tapping my fingertip, the pad of my finger with my other finger, going, yeah, I don't feel anything. And this guy I'm talking to is just screaming like he's going to puke because it's so gross what I'm doing. And I'm just like, well, what do you want me to do? It's broke, but I'm not going to miss out on double time and a half and time and a half and double time.
Right.
I'm working for the next 2 days after this happened, and went into work on Monday and gave my boss, who wasn't there at all for any of this, my return to work slip, and he's like, what's okay, he's looking it over, and I'm like, yeah, I got no restrictions, I can work, anything that I normally do, I can still do, I just got to be careful with my finger, and I am. And then I gave him the receipt because the supervisor that filled out the accident report is like, I'm not going to send you for a drug test, I trust that it was truly an accident, you weren't horsing around, you weren't goofing around, that this wasn't you trying to get hurt, so I'm not going to make you take a drug test. And when I went to the clinic, they said, did they want a drug test? And I said, no, but if you want to give me one, I'll take one because I know I'm going to pass. And they're like, well, yeah, we'll give you one anyway just to be safe. So when I get all done with the doctor's appointment, they're like, now you got to go to the ER and pee in a cup. And I'm like, you can't do it here? And they're like, no, that part of the clinic's closed. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, you got to go to the ER. So I drive across town to the hospital and go to the ER, and I walk up, and they're like, can we help you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to come here and get a drug test. And they're like, we don't do that here. We do it at the clinic. And I'm like, well, they sent me here. And the nurse makes 5 phone calls, and as she gets done with the last call, it pops up on her computer, oh yeah, this guy's coming in for a drug test, give him the drug test. And she's like, well, I'm really sorry, but we're backed up. It's going to be a couple hours. And I'm like, okay. So I pull out my phone, and I'm sending Paula a text saying, hey, I'm at the ER waiting on a drug test. They said it's going to be a couple of hours. And I got that far in typing when they walked up to me with a nurse and said, she's ready to take you right now. And I'm like, okay. So I went and peed in a cup, took a breathalyzer test, which I passed because I haven't had, as I said to the nurse, wow, that drink I had 5 years ago finally got out of my system.
There you go.
And, they gave me a receipt saying that, okay, he was here for 11 minutes and this is why. So I turned that into my employer going, oh, here, I gave it to my boss going, here's the receipt for my drug test that you guys said I didn't need, but they gave it to me anyway. And then when I talked to our safety supervisor, like, oh no, you had to take a drug test. That's mandatory. We require that anytime there's an incident. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, again, I know I wasn't going to fail it. But
and you're getting paid.
Yeah, and
take a drug test.
Yeah, their insurance, the workman's comp insurance, is paying for my doctor visit and the X-rays and all that. And I got paid for 8 hours because I was at work for 8 hours. I pretty much just discovered breaking my finger that unless I lose a limb and am physically incapable of working, I'm going to finish my shift before I go to the hospital.
Exactly.
Because
see, I go ahead.
No. Because I've worked with places where people have gotten hurt and it's a minor injury, but they're like, oh, I should probably go get checked out. And it's like, no, I'm going to finish my shift. I don't get paid if I go to the hospital.
Right. See, he's referring to the middle finger of my left hand. I broke the tip of it last Friday. I didn't know it was an accident, and I was gonna. That's why I asked, why did you break the tip of your finger? It's like people will talk bad when you do things like that.
Well, that was when I called my dad. I got sympathy from him. He was going, "You were picking your nose, weren't you?" I'm like, "No, Dad, I don't pick my nose with my middle finger. That's one of the big ones, Dad. I use my pinky like a normal person."
I'll tell you, we